Hello again. I didn't document any of my chemotherapy. I was adamant that I didn't want to associate myself with cancer. I didn't look at scans. I didn't ask for a prognosis. Julie and I had a shitty roadblock in our lives that we had to get over so we could get on with life. But that has all changed. Back when this whole mess started, I was a complete wreck. I was in no shape to make these videos. I can't even imagine what they would have been. It is safe to say that no one wants to see a YouTube video of a man that looks like he's 6 months pregnant. Or full from 16 donuts and a case of VB from stomach bloating. I know I don't. The point is, while looking at the world through a fuzz of endone due to my lung pain, denial through refusal of association was the only power I had left. So that has all changed since I started this channel because I wanted to reach some people. Now that radiation is underway and my workout regime has taken a backseat, I can safely report back that it's shit. I realize that might come across to some people as controversial. Jokes. But a couple of takeaways. First off, I was terrified. It's perfectly okay to admit that. Cancer treatment is a lot of repetition. But before you go through anything for the first time, you can't help but be a little nervous. Especially when you consider the inherent risks that come with radiation. Short term I can deal with, but long term, well, let's just say you have to sign a piece of paper to prove that you understand them. So after reflecting on my anxiety of having radiation, it occurred to me that others may have similar concerns. It's worth mentioning that everyone's cancer is completely different. In turn, so is their treatment. This is just my experience. Anywho, me, scared shitless. So my first appointment was question time, a CT scan, tattooing, and scheduling. The funny part was during the CT scan and tattooing, I was told to change into a blue robe thingy. So off to the change room I went, where I did 15 push-ups just to represent. Then I exited the change room, walked literally 3 meters to the CT scan room, where I was told to take off said robe. So I was told to robe up for a distance a frog could jump. I would have gladly walked that far in my undies, but I digress. This was on a Friday, so I was all manned up to show up on Monday to get the show on the road. But nope, they got to do their planning, which I assume is important. So my first treatment was 2 weeks later. They gave me a anti-nausea med that I had to dissolve under my tongue. Before taking it, I asked them if it tasted awful, to which they said, absolutely. I love nurse humor. I should have mentioned that everyone during this whole process is super nice, as always. But pro tip, you'll have way more fun than you would otherwise if you make as much light of the situation as possible. Nurses have a tough job, so your job is to make it as fun as possible. What I'm saying is do your best. So now they lead me into what we'll call a bunker. I got one look at Dr. Evil and his shark with a freaking laser beam on his head. And immediately I asked if I had time to have a nervous wee. So I'll be honest, I ran like a little girl to the bathroom to hide. Half truth. I did my business and stared at myself in the mirror. I got all psyched up by pumping my chest like King Kong and walked back in and robed off. Hey, don't judge me. The whole experience is intimidating. They asked me for my full name, date of birth and address. They then asked where I was getting radiated. I assumed that was a liability question and really hoped they knew what the hell they were doing. I pointed at my bell and passed all exam questions with top scores. Like a CT or PET scan, you have to lie down on a narrow bed that has a head crevice, a bum crevice, and handlebars above your head. I laid down and they told me to unbutton my pants because they didn't want metal in the area. Next, they turn off the light like Nelly Furtado and line up the Death Star. For some reason, I was reminded of anti-aircraft fire during the London Blitz. Prime Minister, you had better head down to your bunker. Tally-ho! Not really. There's a lot of shifting and measuring distances with thumbs and various other hand gestures, like they're bloody Marty Scorsese or something. It was at that point that I told them to hurry up because my push-ups were wearing off. So they got me zeroed in and asked me if I'd like any music played. That's a really loaded question to ask me when I'm nervous. It is, however, a really good way to cut the tension with me. I started rattling off half a dozen bands that were met with blank stares. So in honor of Julie, I settled with metal. They put on a classic rock station. The song that came on reminded me of one of those shitty punk pop songs from the American Pie soundtrack. No big deal. So before the technicians left the room, they told me to wave my hands and scream out if I want them to stop. That was the most unsophisticated part of the proceedings. So they leave for another bunker where they go to turn their keys, I guess. Like that movie Crimson Tide. Sick movie. First, another CT scan just to make sure I ate my breakfast. Very unnerving because the whole thing is spinning around you. Not like a normal CT scan where you're essentially lying inside a giant donut. This thing has many moving parts, rotating around you like a deep space vessel. No idea when the actual radiation starts. And then it happened. The whirring of the CT scan stopped, and an illuminated sign just in my peripheral turned red, or maybe it was yellow. That caught my attention. I looked at it, and it read, "Beam on." Beam on? Who the fuck decided to word it like that? Hey Captain Kirk, are you sending me down to the planet's surface, champ? Is that what we're doing here? So now I'm getting radiated. It's a different whirring sound. I'd have to say it's a scarier one. It literally sounds like a sound from a science fiction film. However, I felt nothing. I thought I could at one point, like a warmness, but that could have easily just been the nerves. After it does its cycle one way and then the other, they come back in the room like they've been hiding from a scary monster. I got up, sucked my gut in, thanked the technicians, and left. The whole session literally takes about 10 minutes. I'm 6 sessions in, 9 to go. So far, the worst side effect is fatigue. Before recording this, I had a really strong coffee. Moreover, just to compare this to chemo, chemo is longer innings. Depending on your treatment, you might get chemo every 3 weeks for 6 months. That's pretty much what I had. So you'll get stretches of a week or two where you don't have to go to the hospital. Radiation is every day. Well, every weekday. It's like having a day job, and that's why it's a slog. Tomorrow is Friday, and I do have weekend anticipation. Anyway, I'll have more to say on this next week. So go do what you do. Hopefully it's not radiation. But if it is, stay strong. And I'll go do what I do, which at the moment is fucking radiation. But I'm not the first. And it most certainly sucks that I won't be the last. But I'll get through it. For Julie.